Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Jewel here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Metroid Zero Mission for the Game Boy Advance, basically a remake of the original Metroid back on the NES. So, last time, we have managed able to realize about the fact that the game itself is not exactly over yet. Because of that though, we somehow managed to crash landed into the new location known as Truzolia. In addition to that, we also managed able to somehow avoid a lot of those space pirates, while at the same time, we've managed able to explore quite a bit during the forms of Truzolia, in addition to Trozo Ruins. And speaking of ruins though, we did somehow manage to stumble across into ourselves the next boss in the game, technically speaking, by the forms of Ruin Test. And while at it, we did somehow manage able to fully recover everything, in addition to able to finally manage able to include 3 unknown items, which as it turns out we got not only the plasma beam, but also the gravity suit, as well as the space jump. So as a result, yeah, we actually now become extremely powerful more than ever. In addition to that, we also managed able to stumble across into ourselves the power bombs. So yeah, we should be good to go, right? Well, as it turns out about the fact that there's still got a whole ways to go. So because of this though, yeah, there's the super missile tank right there, just in case you don't want to miss this out. So anyway, today for this video is about the fact that we're being able to actually continue exploring for the forms of Truzolia by able to actually experiencing to able to realize about the fact that now we're actually able to become extremely powerful more than ever. Now as it turns out about the fact that we can now able to explore the majority of the forms of Truzolia. In addition to that, maybe if it's a possibility, we can able to actually head back into the previous areas in the game, including by the forms of Brinstar, as well as Norfair, as well as the forms of some familiar locations. Because as it turns out, about the fact no matter what though, let me just go ahead and go through here, to able to actually just to try to go ahead and snake past for those space pirates no matter what though, and relatively speaking though, everything else will be pretty much expected. I think for the majority of this part right here, is that we can technically able to actually finish the game with you know, just trying to able to make our way to the ending portion of the forms of Truzolia. But as it turns out for this particular video's case, this is going to be most likely going to have to able to backtrack, to able to grind as many of those collectible pickups as much as we can. So hopefully I will try my best to able to actually just try to get the last few items here and there. Because I'm pretty sure about the fact that we've only got about roughly 3 energy tanks left. Now I'm not exactly sure how many missile expansions we got left, in addition to the forms of the super missiles and stuff like that, and especially noticeable with the power bomb tanks as well. But I'm sure enough though, I think we'll let some toy sales be able to mention more details about that and during at some point until tomorrow. So anyway, so a few things we want to explain for this point today, and that is about the fact that today's date is of course the 13th of December today, in this case in 2023 today. As it turns out, we've only got about 12 days of Christmas, so yes, it's actually getting very close during that time. And speaking of which though, we've only got about roughly 2 more days left now until Chicken Run Dawn of the Nuggets will be expecting to be releasing on Netflix. So yeah, I'm sure I'm really excited about this, and I'm pretty sure about that time is about the fact that until tomorrow, I'm pretty sure we're most able to watch the first film again, just before we're able to dive right into the forms of Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget. So as a result, it makes sense, because obviously we've been waiting for the sequel for a very long time. So as a result, well, despite the fact that it's going to be made by the actual different distribution or something like that, even though it's still Armin of course, which as to be expected, but usually relatively speaking, ever since during the forms of Shaun the Sheep the movies, as well as Early Man, it's usually been made by the forms of Studio Canal and all that stuff. Even though luckily though, Pat V is going to be involved in this as well, ever since in the first film. So because of this though, yeah, that pretty much summed up as such. So either way though, and still, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you still excited, able to see Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget? Because I sure I am. So, oh, and by the way, you have to use the power bomb on this part right here, because, well, we can now able to experience this area. So either way though, because as it turns out, we can pretty much guarantee about the fact that we'll go ahead and try to search for one of those items in particular that we most able to. Oh yeah, we do need a power bomb for this part, so either way though, as usually it seems to be the case. So Alright, so if I recall correctly, oh jeez, we got surrounded by the forms of the majority of those space pirates from above. But I suppose it doesn't matter, because thanks to the forms of, you know, not only the space jump, but also the screw attack as well, so we can able to actually make our way up to able to get yet another power bomb tank. So that should be pretty swell. So, there's another thing I should probably explain about this as well, and something tells me we do need able to learn the Shine Spark, or should I say, the Speed Booster right here, so we can potentially try to able to... I actually can't remember, actually, because I know for a fact it's been about 2 days ago since I actually last played this for sure, because as it turns out about the fact that we actually getting very close towards the end. So, even though still, sometimes the actual process of getting the last few items might take a very long time to able to get this process going. So, but either way though, so yeah, just try to get used to this. So, alright, so there's another power bomb section right here, so we can able to, of course, we do need able to learn the Shine Spark ability no matter what, so I suppose about the fact that we can able to hit down here, not only do we able to come across into yet another recovery room slash the save room, so we'll able to actually save the game from here. So, yeah, as far as anything else I could possibly explain about this kind of stuff, though, and that is about the fact that, well, like we said before, it's a good thing that we able to actually realize about the fact that I'm actually very excited able to finally get a chance to do Luigi's Mansion 2 at some point in next year, thanks to the actual Switch enhanced remastered version of the game. So, relatively speaking about the fact that it's nice able to catch up on the entire trilogy of stuff. So because of this though, yeah, everything else will be pretty much accounted for. So either way though, not only that, about the fact that I found was a little bit interesting is about the fact that there's actually some of those regional differences when it comes to the forms of My Little Pony Adventure Magic in mind. Although I'll explain more details in a second, because here we have yet another energy tank. So yeah, it looks like we've only got 2 left. So I wonder what the last 2 could have been. I know there's generally the last one, which appears to be somewhere located later on during the forms of Trusodia, and I will have to admit it though, the final energy tank in the game is by far the hardest to obtain, most notably because of this very stingy timing jumps you have to put up with, so, but then again though, we'll talk more details about that at some point in this Friday, so, yeah, that's pretty much as far as this is concerned, so. Alright, so something tells me that, well, there's a secret area we can able to hop onto for this point, even though despite my jumps it still feels a bit finicky at points, and we'll go into morph ball mode so we can able to navigate for this particular mini maze structure and stuff like that and get rid of that enemy, and we're able to actually get the, what else, another super missile tank. So, anyway though, oh yeah, speaking of which though, it's about the fact that it wasn't until about that time, until specifically in this Saturday, in some cases though, the 15th of December, not only does Sonic Prime will eventually become 1 year old during that time, but also about the fact that there's a game called Super Mario Run is expected to become 7 years old during at some point until also on Saturday as well, so yeah, it seems pretty crazy to able to actually just to consider yourself about the fact that it's kind of hard for me to go back onto Super Mario Run these days, most notably because about the fact that it just feels a bit simplistic. Although don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it back in the day, although ultimately speaking though, I just simply moved on, especially noticeable after that particular really cool installment when it comes to the forms of the 2D Mario games, which is of course Super Mario Bros. Wonder. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, and also it's nice to be able to have co-op multiplayer again ever since in New Super Mario Bros. U / New Super Luigi U as well, or technically both for that matter though. So either way though, yeah, one of those episodes in particular from the likes of My Little Pony Adventure Magic called Flight to the Finish, yeah, that particular episode, and specifically when it gets to tomorrow anyway, that episode will eventually become a decade old too. While looking back on it though, I thought it was a very enjoyable episode as well, most notably because of how the fact that I just really love the sense of like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, because obviously I haven't exactly watched that episode for a very long while, especially noticeable because I still have myself my complete Season 4 DVD set as far as DVD compilation as far as I'm concerned, Although, mind you, about the fact I'm still a little bit ticked off about the fact that Bat's episode has been absent in the UK release of the Films of certain DVD compilations. So, oh, it looks like we actually come across into ourselves criteria. Huh, that sounds interesting. And of course, if you ever come across into a yellow door, obviously we have to use the power bombs for this, because otherwise, if you don't have any power bombs with you, then you have to able to grind for them. So just keep this in mind. So, anyway, so since about the fact that we're now going back into the previous areas, like for instance with criteria, as I said this before, this also means about the fact that we can now do some more stuff here and there. Especially noticeable, we can now able to actually use space jump in any other areas, including Brimstar and Norfair as well. Although, keep this in mind is about the fact that, like I said before, this is what certain collectible pickups gets a lot more tougher than ever, most notably because you need to master those specific skills. Like, for instance, about the fact that, as you can see, I'm having a hard time just trying to able to space jump as in a river. And as it turns out about the fact that there's one of those pickups I do need to get, and something tells me I do need to do, let's just say, a speed booster segment as far as I'm aware. And let me activate that door, which almost leads us back into the forms of Chozo Ruins, or Trusodia, whatever you want to say. So either way though, let's go ahead and get ourselves a good old speed booster right here, and just do that. And, well, we have to do a morph ball situation right here, and able to get ourselves a yet another missile expansion tank. So, yeah, everything else will be pretty much has to be difficult at this point, even though I'm sure I'm also able to get this, but either way though, I will definitely gonna able to actually try my best so I can able to actually grind, or potentially trying to able to get those collectibles on the first attempt or roughly, but either way though, sometimes it's so hard to judge because of the forms of that particular, you know what I'm saying about the fact that between both Super Metroid as well as Metroid Fusion and this, loves you able to actually dealing with the forms of a lot of emphasis on Shine Spark. So, because once you do that successfully, then you should able to deal with it okay enough. So, but either way though, yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. So, oh yeah, speaking of something related to the Brony side of things, when it comes to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, I found this a little bit interesting is about the fact that it does contain multiple regional differences. Like, for instance, about the fact that in Hubro, that one of those two characters do have their different names. Like, we already know for the fact that obviously in English, as well as the forms of any other languages, do manage to able to name Fluttershy, Fluttershy, and then as far as I'm aware for Applejack, usually in English says Applejack. But in Hebrew, it's actually sound a little bit different, or in some cases though, they have their different names. In Hebrew, Fluttershy's name is turned into Shy. I'm not exactly sure why though, but I guess that's quite intriguing. And on top of that, with Applejack's name in Hebrew, she's actually referred to as good fruit in Hebrew. Okay, that sounds a little bit odd, but okay, I guess that's something. Now, interesting enough is that in the Chinese version of the forms of Princess Celestia, as far as what her character's name in the English version of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, as it turns out that the Chinese version actually has a different name. As it turns out, it's actually known as Princess Universe, which I thought was a little bit, well, pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. Especially noticeable because, well, again, I haven't exactly watched the Chinese translation version of the films of this particular show in mind. Well, that's just because about the fact I'm still used to with the English dub. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, there's also another thing I should probably also mention about this as well. Do you guys even remember, or some brownies out there, managed to able to be familiar with the episode called The Best Night Ever, the finale portion of Season 1? Where basically most of the ponies managed to able to celebrate the Grand Gala Bingala in the English version. Well, as it turns out, in the Korean version, it does have a different name for it. And as it turns out, it's actually called New Year's Grand Pony Festival, which I think is actually pretty interesting as far as what that particular name is also translated into. So either way, and also I found a little bit odd is that, well, between both the German version, or potentially speaking for the Japanese dub of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, potentially, that I know there was actually that one episode in particular in, let's just say It's About Time, that I can't believe by saying this, is that on a Japanese dub, they include the word hell. Like, I have no words. Although, to be fair though, because of how the fact that the translation somehow differs between the forms of the English dub, but either way though, I haven't exactly watched too much of the Japanese dub either. That's just because I'm still pretty much used to with the English cast. We were especially noticeable with the English dub on top of that, so I'm biased I guess. Although what I found was a little bit strange is that whenever I looked upon the German version of one of those episodes in particular, that usually it's Frenemies in Season 9, when obviously Cozy Glow was pretty annoyed at that random pony that she obviously meets up with. Now as it turns out, in a German version, whenever I looked upon the forms of the German language, it seems fine, but if you translate that, oh my god, they actually include a strong, nasty word. And I was like, oh my god, this show is made for kids! In a German version! Oh jeez, I was not expecting that. Even especially noticeable about the fact that someone actually made a video about the regional differences for the likes of anything else actually. So again, it's hard to explain, but that's just because about the fact that I'm still busy playing through you know what I'm saying, with Super Mario RPG Remake, which I'm still having a lot of fun with, and especially noticeable with WarioWare Move Fit, which as a result about the fact that it's a good thing we're most able to decide that next year will be pretty exciting, especially noticeable we can able to tackle for not only one WarioWare Let's Play on the Switch, but also two. So even then though, that makes it an interesting package as far as this is concerned. Although mind you, we've basically already done DIY, both on the DS and the WiiWare. So as it turns out about the fact that I'm not exactly sure if we might able to do WarioWare Gold anytime soon, but that's just because we still haven't got invested onto the you know what I'm saying, with the 3DS capture card. But that's just because, well, I'm also a little bit worried about the forms of this very finicky clamshell on my new 3DS specifically, because as a result, I'm just a little bit worried about the fact that sometimes it might break after a while. So yeah, I'm just a little bit too careful about it. Oh, and by the way, that power bomb tank right up there is actually very tricky, because you need to learn not only for the forms of a, well, Shine Spark, but also you need to turn it into a Morph Ball, and you have to aim it at the diagonal position, because otherwise, if you do it correctly, then you should be able to execute it quite successfully. So it's definitely a little bit tricky. So anyway, so you notice about the fact that this particular rock is now blocking the actual entrance to the continuation of the forms of criteria, because as it turns out that we did somehow already land criteria since the beginning of the game. Well, it immediately cuts the forms of Brimstone, able to make it as a reference to the original Metroid. So yeah, you probably get the idea. So we need to do a speed booster as soon as we're able to continue proceedings during the forms of criteria. So either way though, that make it a little bit more obvious. So, but anywho though, oh, of course, you do need to able to utilize the Shine Spark as well, so just in case you can able to now finally fully explore the rest of the forms of criteria, or potentially speaking, just trying to go back into, oh wait, I forgot about that rock exists still, especially noticeable after that particular countdown, after destroying Torian. In fact, speaking of Torian though, I'm very curious to know how Torian actually looks like at this point, so let me just go ahead and use the super missile, which we've already did, and let's hop back onto the elevator right here, and it looks completely, well, destroyed, at least as far as I'm aware. Although every once in a while though is about the fact that it's pretty cool that you can now able to go back into Torian now, especially noticeable because we can now able to actually realize there are some more pickups to like collect. Like for instance, if we use the power bomb right here, and we do need to use the super missile for this point, and from here we get ourselves yet another power bomb tank. So that should be pretty swell. So anywho though, and what I found was a little bit interesting when it comes to the forms of another regional differences when it comes to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and as it turns out about the fact that I believe in journey forms of one of the Middle East countries or something, one of those cutie marks, specifically Twilight Sparkle's cutie mark, looks a bit different compared to the forms of how it does it what we used to. I'm guessing because they did somehow manage to cut out the 6th Sharpie bit, or just end parts. It's hard to explain, but as it turns out about the fact that the reason why it just gets a different shape, based off on Twilight Sparkle's cutie mark, is most likely because they somehow referenced one of those religion symbols, like something relates to Star of David or something. So, and that could be also applies for her cutie mark as well. And in one of those songs in particular called Flawless in Season 7, Episode 14, obviously about the fact that they somehow managed able to almost, well, cover up Applejack in one of those parts of the actual song. So, yeah, it seems very bizarre to me. So, anyway, and another thing is worth noting for is that there's actually some of those very weird references coming from the Polish version of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and that is about the fact that they mentioned something refers to or reference taking people's lives in during that particular translation, which again is a bit odd concerning this is a kid's show after all. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, I think in one of those episodes in particular did mention something like this, which there are lunar eclipse as well as the forms of spike at your surface, if I recall correctly. So yeah, that seems very odd, even though I found it a little bit fascinating to see what the actual differences are. So either way, and also another thing I should probably also mention about this as well is that, well, believe it or not, Chinese is actually very popular when it comes to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic as this show itself, mainly about the fact that they did somehow manage able to produce, let's just say, the CGI hologram live show, which as a result they are both Chinese exclusive for some reason, which I honestly have no idea why. They never saw to release it on the English countries for some reason. So, but either way though, I found it a little bit fascinating to able to notice there was actually not one, but two different hologram shows. One is based around the forms of something Chinese related. So yeah, that's actually pretty something. As well as from that, there's also the forms of Rainbow Sonic hologram show, which I think that usually takes place in 2 years ago. So, at least if I was assuming so anyway, according to the actual, like, the time of day, I think is what it's at. And also during that specific time is that in Mexico, they did somehow open up the forms of, let's just say, Hasbro City, which as a result, I'm not exactly sure how to explain about this kind of stuff though. Well, that's just because about the fact that I haven't exactly looked upon theme parks for quite some time, especially noticeable because, well, at this point in time about the fact that me and Blue, including buddy forms of Carla and Baya and Tiago, by that point until specifically next year, we're about to able to go into the most exciting trip out, or specifically a nice holiday next year. That's what appears to be the Super Nintendo world in Hollywood, because, well, believe it or not, next year we're about to be going to America, so I'm actually very excited about this, although the only reason why I'm going to say we're going to America to begin with is because, obviously, like I said before, we're about to able to take a look at the forms of the coolest amusement park ever, which is of course the Super Nintendo world. So yeah, you probably get the idea of how the fact that we actually fully become a Nintendo fanatic now, especially noticeable with the forms of, you know, popular franchises like Super Mario and Kirby, and you name the rest. So, oh, and by the way, on the subject of the actual films, Journey films have been 2023 so far, it seems about the fact that we basically almost done when it comes to the films of certain film releases, aside from the fact that I've already mentioned about the films of Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, and I think during that time, there's also another film called Anyone But You. I think that film's going to be releasing around the same day as in Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, but personally speaking, I'm usually excited for Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget a lot more, just because I'm very excited for it. So maybe at that time about the fact that after we've watched the first Chicken Run film on Disney Plus, on DVD, on the UK version, so as a result of that kind of stuff though, maybe I'll ask Blue if he was able to fetch some popcorn before we're able to start watching the films of Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. Whilst at the same time, maybe it's a possibility we can able to actually finish this particular playthrough itself too. So that could be the only prime reasonable thing for it. So either way, let's just go through here to able to go ahead and actually access to a different route. So it pretty much leads us to the forms of, let's just say, we're going back into the forms of Norfair. So that will be a cool alternative shortcut right here. So functionally speaking though, when it comes to the forms of those alternative routes, it feels very similar to the forms of how it does it in, well, let's just say in Metroid Fusion, for instance, that you can able to actually go into the alternative route as much as you can. So yeah, that's actually quite intriguing. So either way though, and of course about the fact that, as you can tell, since that we are now going to be traversing through underwater from time to time, this also means about the fact that we've got much more movement in underwater. So yeah, that basically examples the fact that we've now finally got the gravity suit now. So even then though, it makes things a little bit more imaginable. So anywho though, yeah, in terms of everything else though, there are quite a few films left, which, as I mentioned this before, aside from Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, there's also, as I mentioned earlier, Anyone But You, but there's also Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, and that's going to be releasing at some point in, I would classify as saying, I don't know actually, because relatively speaking, I haven't exactly double checked on the actual release date so far on certain films, so let me know in the comments down below. And there's also going to be the forms of Rebel Moon, and especially noticeable with Wonka, I think it's what it says anyway, yeah, Wonka. So, although, kind of thinking about it, I'm pretty sure that Wonka, yeah, it's going to be releasing around the same day as Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, as far as I found out. So, because obviously about the fact that we've already got Leave the World Behind already on Netflix for about a couple of days ago. So either way though, apologize for my commentating is a bit iffy at this point, because aside from the fact that I've already mentioned about quite a lot of regional differences when it comes to like something brony related like My Little Pony and stuff like that. So yeah, I found it was a little bit intriguing. And even there's actually that one point that they did somehow manage able to get themselves not only with the McDonald's promotion of something related to My Little Pony stuff, but as far as I found out, that KFC also promotes something related to My Little Pony, but as it turns out, it's just Generation 5, so, but either way though, that's actually quite something else entirely. So anyway, so let's go through here to grab ourselves a yet another power bomb tank right in there. So yeah, you can definitely tell about the fact that they're going to be bringing us into a lot, I mean a lot of pickups in this remake, because obviously it makes sense they're able to actually make this particular version a lot more expansive than the forms of how it does it from the original game, as I mentioned this countless amount of times already. So there's no point for able to repeat that kind of process again. Although kind of thinking about it though, I'm very curious to know, at least it wasn't until likely in a couple of days later, I wonder if it's anything is possible about the fact that maybe Chicken Run Dawn of the Nugget might actually review very, very well by that time though. I'm not exactly sure what the reviews is going to turn out to be, but I'll find out soon enough, especially noticeable about the fact that maybe we'll try to mention more about it after the film's release, but again, no spoilers for this point please, because obviously I just don't want to get to the actual ending portion get too spoiled for myself, especially noticeable because I'm still very curious to know what exactly is going on. So, but either way, yeah, in terms of everything else I could possibly explain, I think that's as far as I can talk about. So, but either way though, and yeah, that's what I can really say about it. So anyway, so for now on though, let's just go ahead and continue exploring through Norfair for a bit, so just in case we can able to actually find some secret areas that we can able to actually just to like discover and all that stuff, and we'll just go ahead and double check what's on the map. So it seems about the fact that I still need able to actually get actually access to certain parts, but either way though, sometimes I just really like, oh, this is the part that I've already got one of those expansion kits from earlier on, but I simply use the ice beam right there. So either way though, yeah, that's what I can really say about it, I guess. So, but either way, again, I would have liked able to explain something else for that matter, guys, but either way, though, I think that's as far as I can talk about. So, either way, but I'm still very excited about the forms of this upcoming film coming up on Netflix. So, I'm not exactly sure if it's possible that it might actually potentially try to get its release on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K, but we'll have to wait and find out, especially noticeable when we're still in 2023, of course. And I think, relatively speaking, though, is about the fact that we've almost at the halfway point in terms of the forms of the final month of 2023, which is, of course, December. And as a result, like I said before, we've only got 12 more days to go until not only for Christmas time, but also about the fact that, well, as far as I'm aware, on my calendar, I believe we've only got about roughly, if I recall correctly, 19 days to go, until the new year is about to start on the 2024, so that'll be pretty exciting. So even then, no, but then again, no, we'll let some Toys else or Maxi were able to mention more about what's your exciting hype moments in 2024. So, but even then, no, we'll have to wait and find out. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, again, about the fact that I apologize for that particular processing of this uploading schedule still feels a bit slow at points, but I'm sure enough, though, we'll be able to actually try to solve this particular... Well, it's kind of hard to explain, because I think I've already mentioned about quite a lot of stuff, potentially, so... Anywho, though, so, yeah, as far as I'm aware, about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, though, about the fact that, yeah, let's just go and use the speed booster right here, so we can able to actually go back into this familiar segment, as we've already experienced, since, whenever we did manage to able to, like, before we get ourselves the forms of super missiles for that particular spot, or something relates to that. So, but either way, though, I think, relatively speaking, that we'll go ahead and, oh yeah, we still need to able to use the regular missiles to able to take down those tentacle stuff, so there's no way we can able to actually utilize, not only the screw attack on this point, but also with space jump as well, so, yeah, kind of amusing though, but that's besides the point, so... Anyways, let's go through here, and I think we're most able to actually go ahead and say this right now. I believe the last few collectibles we can probably go after, which appears to be we're going back into Ridley's lair, possibly for the final time, so just in case we can able to actually take care of the forms of the most of those pickups or collectibles, so... Anyway, so let's see what's beyond. I don't think there's anything else in here, so we'll just, continue forward. So either way though, so relatively speaking about the fact that now we need to able to take care of the forms of, in my opinion, is one of the hardest aspects to do in this particular remake, and that's of course trying to able to collect most of those pickups for let's just say some of the tough parts here and there. So anyway, so let's just go ahead and grab some more missiles, and oh, is there something up there? Oh, there is something out there, I think anyway, despite space jump is a bit finicky when you try to get the hang of it though still, although I'm presuming to you it might actually lead us to nowhere, so I think it just, I don't know about you, because it's been 2 days ago since I've played this, so, because you know, still, I've been busy playing through Super Mario RPG during the forms of, you know, in this holiday season, because obviously everyone else has been hyped about it for such a long time, as we already established earlier, and as a result of that kind of stuff though, that's the perfect example of why, that maybe potentially that Super Mario RPG might sell well, especially noticeable just like, let's just say by the forms of maybe if there's a possibility that Super Mario Bros. Wonder might also sell well as well. So, but either way though, again, it's hard to tell because we have to wait until specifically in 2024 that we're able to get ourselves financial sales numbers when it comes to the forms of certain Switch titles as far as this is concerned. But anyway, let's just go back into this familiar room, as we've already learned the Shine Spark ability since in the beginning portion of that particular room. And instead of going to the left, instead we need to go on to the right to make the travel system a bit faster. And I think, if I was assuming correctly, there's going to be another one of those moments that we do need to once again learn the Shine Spark ability again. And no matter what though, we're going to be able to go on to the right this time. So... and this one gets pretty tricky because you need to able to get a good timing requirement and also just try to able to make your way as quickly as possible, as you can see. And this one pretty much leads us to the hardest room, at least in my opinion anyway. I actually kind of think about it. It's not exactly the room I was thinking about. I think it's definitely another one coming up that is potentially is one of the trickiest. So, anyways, let's go through here. And once again, we need to learn the Shine Spark again. And we need to able to go as quickly as possible, because if you use the Morph Bomb onto this room, the actual parts, as you can see right there, it's all crumble blocks. So, yeah, this might take a while, especially noticeable because you need to keep on utilizing the Shine Spark a lot. So, either way though, this is going to be one of those trickier rooms to able to go through. So, but that doesn't even compare to the forms of the stingiest one out of the lot. That, again, we'll get to that once we're able to pass this room first. So, I think the best strategy for this is, though, is just turn into a morph ball for a bit, and then once you're able to get ourselves enough breathing room, then you should able to actually get ourselves a bit of a higher jump to able to grab onto certain ledges before it explodes, and exponentially you can get yourselves a, what else? Another missile tank. So, but that doesn't end off here, because we now need to go up and do the different room, and oh boy, this room right here is the hardest of the bunch, at least to me anyway, because as you can see, we have another missile tank down there. But here's the catch. Basically, it's about the fact that if you get rid of those blocks, as you can tell, one of them is not breakable. So if we use the power bomb, not only do we have to use the regular missile to able to destroy that particular block, but also we need to use speed booster. And here's the thing, we need to do a lot of timing requirements because, well, I'm telling you, this room right here is very, very difficult. Especially noticeable because every time whenever you re-enter the room, everything else respawns, including these blocks, including the missile block as well. And geez, no matter how many times I did manage to did this on my own time on the Game Boy Advance cartridge version of the game, it honestly took me about almost 50 minutes able to get to this point. But if you're lucky enough, like I just did right there for a third time's the charm, basically you would able to success for this. So, but believe me, that room is pretty, I'm not gonna lie, pretty hellish to go through. Like, in terms of trying to able to obtaining the actual missile tank. But if you think we're basically done, well, I'm sure there's a way we can able to actually break out of this though. Like, for instance, that, oh, of course, we need to use the speed booster again. Oh boy, you see what I mean about the fact that this game loves you trying to deal with some more Shine Sparks or potentially speed boosters. I get it because the forms of new accessible areas to go through, but still, this game's so obsessed with the forms of Shine Sparks sometimes. But that's the way how I feel about it, I guess. So, anyway, so I think for the most part, we are basically done with the majority of the forms of Ridley's Lair, if I recall correctly. Mind you, I haven't exactly got my checklist or anything, so sometimes it's kind of hard to judge about the forms of my checklist at points. So, anyways though, so let's just go and continue things on here. And try to avoid as many of those enemies as possibly could, even though despite the fact that we don't need to worry about the forms of not only with lava, but also with acid as well, just because about the fact that, well, for the most part we actually got for these specific parts okay enough. So, anyway, so now we can hop back onto the elevator, so just in case we can able to backtrack for more previous areas, because I'm pretty sure about the fact that the last few collectibles is going to be at Truzodia, basically. So in some cases though, that not only will able to contain some of the tricky rooms to able to go through potentially as well, but also about the fact that it contains the hardest energy tank to obtain. So yeah, that might be a pain though, we'll admit though right away. But either way though, we'll get to that particular topic and doing at some point until on Friday. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes it can take a bit while to able to go back and forth between these different areas or anything else to be more specific. So now speaking of films, as far as I'm aware, I think it's actually doing alright for this year. I mean, there are some exceptions though, mind you, like I still managed able to skip over the Little Mermaid remake because I just don't care for it anymore. And on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that when it comes to the biggest highlight of certain movies I've seen so far, I think there are 3 best movies I've seen so far. Well, aside from the fact that with one coming up later on this week, in this Friday potentially, I will say my favorite films for this year so far has to be by the forms of not only Super Mario Bros. The movie, or the Super Mario Bros. Movie as far as what I meant to say. In addition to that, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, just to able to get a nice little wrap up of this entire trilogy when it comes to the forms of Guardians of the Galaxy film series as far as this is concerned. In addition to that, with the forms of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, because, you know, it's the most hyped films ever when it comes to, like, sequels alike. And on top of that, it actually received very, very well. like not only for its review scores, but it's also about that time about the fact that we're pretty excited about the fact that what the continuation of that particular point is actually going to follow. But I suppose we'll find out later down the road though, because obviously about the fact I'm pretty sure that Sonic and the rest of the gang has already mentioned about this quite an amount of times in the past few months. Now in terms of games wise, I would say that the game selection in this year is pretty much the strongest point of the whole entire year. Just because about the fact that despite it's actually a pretty slow start in the beginning, most notably because I can totally see why this is going to have to mainly focusing on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for the time being, just to ensure about the fact that they just want to make the game as nice as polished as you think. So, but either way though, I'm sure we're able to actually see some of those exciting titles coming out in Journey at some point in 2024 and beyond, and maybe potentially we're also able to hear more about the forms of the next Nintendo console at some point soon. Well, it's hard to tell because obviously about the fact that there's, you know, as usual, leaks and rumors everywhere, so sometimes I don't usually trust them, especially noticeable because they potentially try to make up stuff, and even then though, they just all entirely made up some points, so... But I digress. But yeah, that's as far as I can talk about for this point, guys. Even then, that I fully appreciate about the fact that, relatively speaking, I think this year is actually going to get pretty okay enough. So, but then again, we'll let Maxi will mention more about it until when he goes on to the final Let's Play, presumably for 2023, before we move on to 2024. So with that being said, we're going to end things off at this point right here, so join me next time for more of Let's Play of Metroid Zero Mission, and that is about the fact that we can say this right now, we can pretty much approaching on to the end game basically, to not only just trying to find the last few pickups, but also about the fact that we're trying to take on the true final boss in Metroid Zero Mission. I wonder who that could be, I wonder. So I'll see you guys until on Friday. Later fellas.